Next, okay, we're going to just have a very, very quick jab at the Islamic Dilemma. Kash and I had a show on that just a couple of days ago. And the punchline is that the Islamic Dilemma itself, generally the Quran is saying things like, oh, and we sent it down confirming what is before. And then we read a lot into it. But that's actually not the case. It's us reading a lot. So we're going to just have a couple of slides that actually shows that it's actually all about Jesus. So in this one, so Surah 5, verse 46, it's saying that Jesus confirms the Torah. It also says that the gospel confirms the Torah. Fine, so that's verse 46. Then in Surah 47, it's saying, so let the people of the gospel judge by what Allah has revealed therein. So this is still talking now about the gospel. But then when we get to Surah 48, we get to, we have revealed to you, then the compulsory, or Muhammad has to be inserted in the international, the book in truth, confirming that which preceded it of the scripture and as a criterion over it. So it's like, okay, so we're talking first about Jesus confirming the Torah and the gospel, and the Torah and the gospel confirming the Torah, great. Then he's talking about the gospel, and then it jumps 600 years into the future. The verse starts with and it's all about Muhammad, it's all about the Quran. And it's like, well, clearly not. If the previous verses are talking about Jesus and confirming the Torah and so on, that should mean that verse 48 is just talking about to the audience, saying, we have given you the gospel, because it's what is actually talking just before it, confirming that which preceded it of the scripture, so confirming the Torah, and as a criterion over it. I don't think that this jumps 600 years between verses.
No, I think that's a very good reading of what is actually saying there.
Yep. Any comments, criticisms, additions?
No, it seems pretty clear. It's that the Islamic dilemma appears to be in the standard Islamic narrative, not in the text.
Yep. Yeah, very much so.
Can I just check with Murad? You know where it says the word criterion over it, is that furqan in Arabic, which can mean salvation?
The word in this context is muhaymin.
Muhaymin.
Oh, okay.
And can I tell you guys what muhaymin means? Because this is going to get fun.
Let me know if you know what it means.
Yeah, well, the muhaymin, I'll break it down. So, the word muhaymin in the Aramaic and the Syriac refers to a faithful one, a believer. And the thing is, the verse has to be read as if it's talking about a book, because that's the sin, reading Muhammad into the text, right? So we can't say that what's being referred to, we can't refer to it as muhaymin, because muhaymin means to be faithful. And someone who is faithful is a someone, right? But if you move from faithful, believer, to guardian, you no longer necessitate an agency, right? A guardian can refer to a text, it can refer to a door, right? But someone who is faithful, that implies agency, which, that's the punchline, that this is referring to Jesus being faithful over the Torah, as being he fulfills the Torah, he's faithful over it, right? But because we move it to guardian, and then later it takes on this idea of, a corrector, hegemon, like all these different senses get pulled in the tafsirs, right? But foundationally, the word means faithful. And the context of the verse is talking about Jesus again.
But you are missing something very critical.
Okay.
There is something very nuanced. Here in this context, in Aramaic, it means faithfully dependent on it. So it depends on the Bible. And this is what Christoph Luxemburg says. This is one of the surprises. So it's faithfully dependent on it. So you can't have the Quran without the Bible. That's what it's saying. That's muhaymin. That's the full scope for muhaymin. Yes, it means the believer because, yeah.
But how can a book be a believer? This is what I was, emphasizing.
Believer. No.
Does it mean that the gospel is dependent on the Old Testament? Is that the idea?
No, the Quran is dependent on the Bible.
As in the Quran, as in lectionary?
The Quran is faithful to the Bible. It's faithfully dependent on the Bible.
Right. So that's what you're emphasizing is that element of faithfulness, but explicitly that it's faithful on the Bible, like that the
Yes,
foundation
because
of yeah.
because there is no good English word to give you now that combines these two things, these two elements. But it means it's faithfully dependent on the Bible. Um, uh,
Veer
it
away
doesn't
from it.
play around with it. It's faithfully
Yeah.
dependent on it. You cannot have the Quran without the Bible.
Right. And this is the thing is that you're still reading, Murad, that this is about the Quran, right? But that's an assumption. That's an assumption. This is the point of looking at these verses with a new, fresh look, is that where in this verse does it say Quran? Where does it? Oh, it says Kitab bil Haq. Oh, okay, so therefore it must be referring to the Quran. But we're reading this into the verse. Let's let the verse speak on its own. And this then comes to this bigger question about what is this Kitab bil Haq? And I'd love to hear your take on it, Murad, because from what I'm seeing, Haq refers to engraving from the Semitic root. And if we're referring to a writing, a book, a Kitab bil Haq, as in a writing by means of engraving, that evokes to me the idea of Christ's flesh fulfilling the law, fulfilling the scripture, and therefore his flesh has engraved in it Al-Kitab. And by that logic, it's not talking about a book at all. And therefore it opens up and it's like, oh, that makes sense now. Faithful. Faithful makes sense now, finally, because a book can't be faithful, right? Even if you have this, faithful upon it and all this kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, you need agency to be faithful. So therefore, anyway, so yeah.
Yes, one thing actually
I
before
like
Murad actually jumps
I
in,
like your reading. Yeah, I like the way you read it.
that just try not to get too deep into actually analyzing verses now, as opposed to just going through the what we have in the basic translations. If this
Yeah.
were to be talking about then the gospel, or rather, let's say the Bible. So we have these verses, and then we get to 48. If this were to be talking about the Bible, which confirms the Torah, and then saying, and it's faithful, or rather, it is basically joined with it. As you guys were explaining this, I was thinking, well, we have the New Testament, what these people might actually understand as the Injil, the Gospels, and it is together with the Old Testament. In fact, we actually have both of them together making up the Bible. So could it still be understood as this is talking about the Injil, or rather the Bible, confirming the New Testament, say, confirming the Old Testament, and is also faithful to it? You have to put them together. They don't contradict each other. Could that be possible understanding of this verse?
They see the issue with that though is that firstly it says that it was sent down Nazal, right? So therefore it would be okay, kind of weird. Okay, so you're suggesting that there was the Torah sent down, then the Injil sent down, and then the Kitab bil Haq is this category of both of them together, and that itself was sent down. It doesn't fit. So for me, this is my putting forward. It's referring to the Torah, it's referring to the Injil. This is why this verse is so powerful for the Quranic interpretation of it, right? Because it's like, okay, if it's referring to a kitab, sure, it says kitab bil haq, but we'll just sort of pretend like we don't see that. We just refer to it kitab, and then it becomes whatever kitab we need it to be. In this case, the Quran, right? It seems to me that the foundational conceit is that we read it as if it's talking about a book. And I'll put that forward to now just to think about. I think that it all makes sense once you see kitab bil haq as being Jesus's flesh. And therefore, it's him, his flesh then confirms the Torah, which is in between his hands.
So literally, the word become flesh. So it's a metaphorical way of referring to Jesus.
The
engraved flesh.
the kitab is the scriptures, right? So if he fulfills the prophecies of the scriptures, there's this idea of him fulfilling the Torah and the law. Like he says, I know this comes from the chosen, so it's not scripture, but like I am the law of Moses. I guess maybe he does say that in the scripture. I'm not totally sure, but that's the idea, right? The idea is that the scripture, the Torah, al-Kitab, is engraved within him, and that's why he's obedient and so forth and so forth. And therefore, the idea of al-Kitab bil haq, right? The book by means or with or through haq, meaning inscription. So yeah, the writing through inscription.
Well, something that we need to actually keep discussing, Cash, as we've said before, which is actually those expressions that they seem to have too many meanings, and let's see if we get to the bottom of it. But for now, let's actually continue and see what other things we find in the Quran and whether Muhammad would have been saying these things. So this one as well, so still within the Islamic dilemma, I think this one makes things as well very clearly, very clear, because Surah 2 verse 40 is talking to the children of Israel, so the Jews. So, O children of Israel, remember my favor which I have bestowed upon you, and fulfill my covenant upon you, somehow, that I will fulfill your covenant and be afraid of me. Okay, so this is talking to the Jews, and that's fine. And then when we get to the next verse, and believe in what I have sent down, confirming that which is with you. Now, to me, that would sound again very clearly, if it is talking to the Jews, this is, and the next verse is saying something that I have sent down, confirming that which you have, which would be the Torah. We've seen in the previous verse that in the previous verses, in the previous slide, that Jesus confirms the Torah and the gospel confirms the Torah according to the writers of quite a few of these verses. So if it is talking to the Jews and then it's saying something has been sent down, that that would be something Christian, so Jesus most likely, or possibly the Injil, as opposed to the interpretation that we have with Islam, which is this is happening in Medina, it's talking to the Jews in Medina, and that which I have sent down is the Quran, because there is no Quran in that verse.
I'd like to ask a question of Murad about 240. What came to my attention yesterday when looking at the Murad translation for this is the way it's rendered. It seems like, okay, basically the question is this. The phrasing of "I will fulfill your covenant," it struck me as a bit odd, as in like there's my covenant is used here and your covenant is used here. And this makes sense in the sense of a covenant is an agreement of two parties. So one side has their covenant and the other side has their covenant, their promise. So what strikes me as weird here is it says that bestowed and fulfill my covenant, that I will fulfill your covenant. Basically, is it as simple as God saying, children of Israel, fulfill your side and I will fulfill my side? Or is it saying something a bit different where it's saying, I fulfill your side of the covenant? Is there something there, or is it more straightforward?
It's weird that the Quran uses this word covenant, and of course I took a lot of time to choose this word because I think the author maybe is confused, or maybe what you are saying in the letter is correct, is that I will fulfill my part and you will fulfill your part. It's something that I'm not really sure why
Can I jump
he
in
says
on?
it this way. Yeah.
Can I jump in on this? So I would view it in a Christological sense that Jesus as man fulfills the human side of the covenant by being obedient, first of all.
That's
Something that
exactly what I
human
thought.
beings that
Yeah,
human beings can't fulfill
yeah.
that in any way. They've always failed. So he fulfills it on behalf. And then you could bring in the crucifixion, all the rest of it as well. But on a fundamental level, it's that, I would say.
Yeah, because the way I was seeing it is exactly that it's suggesting that, because the covenant is what? The covenant is, here's the Mosaic law, be faithful to me and I will bless bless all the nations through your seed, to Abraham, right? So that's the arrangement. And if the side of the covenant of the Israelites, which they did not uphold, if that is to follow the law perfectly, if God says, I fulfilled your covenant, that would point to the incarnation and the perfect life lived by Christ. Right, that's why my eye got caught to the exact phrasing here in this verse, because it seemed to suggest that God was fulfilling the side of the covenant of the Israelites because they could not themselves.
Yeah.
I think maybe you're right. It seems in the Arabic as if these are two covenants, and everyone is fulfilling his part. It's not like my pledge and your pledge. These are two covenants. This is how I see it in the Arabic,
Okay,
and
we'll have to look
that's
more
why
at that.
that's why it's weird why the Quran shows this, because even the word Ark of the Covenant is exactly this word. Ahd. This is the Arabic ahd.
Very cool. Okay, well, let's have a look at the next one. The next one is super, super short, and is one that I just always like to bring up because I find it interesting. It's one of the first ones that really that I noticed that it was weird. It's supposed to be Muhammad saying this. Well, it says say, "O believers," but he's the one delivering this. And if we're thinking about Muhammad saying to people what they need to say, and it is that they believe in Allah and what has been revealed and so on, but then it lists all of these very important people: Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, and Jacob. And then you have Moses and Jesus. It's like, but who is missing? If Muhammad was the one saying these words, certainly, most certainly, would say Moses and Jesus and Muhammad, unless, I don't know, maybe Muhammad is there.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yes,
I think that
Yep.
that's says more than the standard Islamic narrative would like known. Really. Yeah, it's very good.
And also, what I found strange about this is the order is very. I always mention this because it's just peculiar that the order seems to be made very particular by the fact that it mentions Ishmael, right? Ishmael before Isaac because Ishmael was born first. So there seems to be like a nature of chronology to this, right? So Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob becomes then Israel and the descendants. So those are the 12 tribes, right? And what was given to Moses and Jesus. And then it goes on and says, and what was given to the prophets from their Lord. So why is it placing the prophets after Jesus? That doesn't make sense, does it? Something's off here.
Yeah, it just seemed to be.
Well,
Would
let's
make
see,
you think whether there's interpolations going on or later editing that kind of has messed up the original.
Well, I have my own. I have a theory of why that's being done here, but I won't mention it because JC's gonna get mad at me.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's actually move on. On the next one, we actually have here. Actually, Murad is when we started using the translation, which Murad we actually used it quite a bit. On this one, we found it easier to actually use the Daif International, just because it would be more common for people as well to read. But on this one is this argument which we have heard you saying, which it says, well, Allah wal Masih, which isn't that, according to Islam, shirk, something that cannot be said?
Yeah, for sure. But the Quran has a weird way of saying things. So that's why when you see the word plus, it feels as if something has been shoved in there. So sometimes you'll see plus in my translation because it's like they took their rabbis and their monks as lords apart from Allah, and it ends, but it says, oh, and plus the Messiah. So the Quranic author uses this very weird way of saying things.
In terms of the grammar of the sentence, it seems to be pretty clear that the one that is meant to be taken as Lord is Allah wal Masih. That then gets obscured, but just based off the fact that you see this form, Allah wa al Masih, it suggests that there is a shirking happening between them.
Yeah. This actually is a very common formula that you find in inscriptions. Actually, I dealt with it in a video that released earlier today. You see it in Christian inscriptions. It talks about God and his Messiah, and you also find it in Jewish inscriptions. In fact, the famous one from 523, it says, the Lord of the Jews, and the next one, and by his Mahmed. So it actually, in place of Messiah, in the Jewish one, it has Mahmed there. So I just think it's interesting.
I think the Najran inscription is B Mahmed, right? So it would be by or through or with, and then presumably desired object. It doesn't have the suffix H, so it doesn't necessarily mean his Mahmed, right? It would mean, in that context, in the inscription of Najran, it's Mahmed, it's as such, not necessarily his.
Okay, right. Did I say his? Sorry, okay.
Yeah, I was
accept
watching your video, in fact, before we jumped on the StreamYard. So
I think I may be in the habit of misremembering the correct translation there, but
it's a slight detail.
by Mehmed, it should be by Mehmed, yeah.
Okay, so this one, I think I have heard from the Christian Prince saying, actually, look, like there is a problem here. You shouldn't actually say that. But what is very interesting is when you see the translators, like how they try to hide this connection, and they would write, maybe after Allah, they will write a comma, and then in brackets, and also the Messiah. And they do all sorts of things just to not give the rendering as it is. So I find that actually hilarious. And if anybody wants to laugh, they can actually go through the standard translations, have a look at this verse, and you will see all of the things that they do. Earlier on, I think it was this morning or yesterday, I sent one of the ones that I found to Cash, and we actually had a good laugh about it because it was just hilarious. So
the translators are acting like chaperones. They're guiding the reader in case they accidentally interpret it in a different way to the way they want people to read it. So they put in their commas, they put in brackets, etc.
Yes, it's all about the message